Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who promises to not fall asleep talking about the AFC South. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. I did not promise that, but I will do my best to try and keep this conversation going throughout. I'm a little upset here at Kieran saying got to do something about Kyle's alarm clock. I'm a little offended that you got to assume it's me that is behind schedule here. I'm a little offended.
This one was on me. This was I was late in sending the invite over. This is all my fault. Apologies. All complaints go to me.
I'm in a remote office right now. I still showed up on time. I'm here.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm actually in Florida, so I flew into the hurricane this morning and
made it. Nice.
Getting some work done this weekend, so got to do some stuff.
Gotcha. This is elite clickbait using the AFC South teams as thumbnail for Super Bowl predictions. Yeah, maybe we could have worked on that.
I can tell you right now, breaking news: no team from the AFC South is in my Super Bowl predictions.
Yeah, we have people are fired up to talk AFC South. We already have Kieran in the chat saying he thinks that we should downsize teams, and this division's a good argument. People are excited.
Yeah. But, I mean, the crowd's buzzing here. Let's get this going. We got two rookie quarterbacks. We got, the Tennessee Titans are going to be the Tennessee Titans again. And we got a rising MVP candidate potentially here. So there's a lot to talk about with this division. Even if it's not the strongest division, I have this as the seventh best division in football. Easily the weakest in the AFC.
Not the worst.
But there are interesting things to talk about.
Okay, yeah. I have to say, I think this is the most interesting the AFC South has been in years. We have a ton to get into because we're also going to, just so everyone knows how the show is going to work, it's going to start off as normal. We're doing our AFC South predictions. And then after that, we are going to give our final season predictions. So we're going to give who's going to win the Super Bowl. We're also going to predict who's going to win each award and all of that good stuff at the end of this episode. So a supersized On the Sideline podcast episode here. But yeah, so, plenty to talk about. Like I said, two rookie quarterbacks. The Jaguars are very fascinating, and the Titans are good. The Titans are, or at least, have been consistently good these past several years. So I think it's interesting. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Who's finishing fourth in this division, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it is going to be fascinating. Starting with number 4 here, I do have the Texans finishing fourth. I've kind of been on it this all off season. I still don't think this is a good team. That being said, is it better than what it's been in the past? Absolutely. I would say this is the strongest Texans team in a couple of years roster wise, which isn't saying a lot, but I think it's proving that you're going in the right direction, which I feel pretty good about. I think there is some upside with this secondary. If some of the rookies can get better in year 2, I think there's upside in this offensive line. They found a gem in Dameon Pierce in the backfield, and then you got CJ Stroud, who, we'll see how it works out in the NFL. We both had him as our number 1 quarterback. I do think there is I do think he has a higher floor than some of the guys in this draft, but I don't necessarily think it's a high floor. But I do think there is a ceiling there that could be untapped potential. So I do think this is an interesting team to watch. I still have it towards the bottom of the league, though. I got the Texans here in fourth.
I think the word of the day for the Texans, the word of this season is upside, right? That's what you're looking at. This is not a team that you're looking at and saying, oh, yeah, these are, they feel great about these positions. This is going to work. It's a lot about, hey, this could work. And that's where the excitement comes in. And we can start off with the quarterback head coach combo, the two most important people in the organization, as, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud. There's plenty to like about both of them. I mean, currently I have them listed as tier 5 quarterback and tier 4 head coach, but that's simply just due to they're unproven. That's the only negative against them. And I could easily see a scenario where we, look at this in a couple of years and say, what a great head coach quarterback combo.
Yeah, I do like both of these guys in a vacuum. I was pretty big on Ryan's getting a job this offseason. I didn't necessarily circle this as the one I wanted him to get. I am curious because I obviously didn't do the background research for this. Bad job by me. But I am curious, what the success rate is for a rookie quarterback and rookie head coach starting the same season. You know, like
Mhm.
I, I'm just curious to see how that works. I don't know how many instances we have of that in the past, but I do think that's an interesting dynamic where they're both kind of learning this job on the fly. And I do think this is a step up for Ryan. He's a team legend. He played with this team. He obviously has the pedigree. He was a fantastic defensive coordinator. So I do think he has the goods to be a good head coach, but this is a really tough job. As the last two coaches over the last 2 years have learned, this is probably the hardest job in football right now.
Yeah, they don't exactly give you a long leash. It seems like in Houston, but I do feel like they're probably going to give, even if it's a disaster, unless it's like a complete disaster.
Mhm.
If it's just bad this year, I think they give him at least one more year.
He's definitely getting 2 years at least.
Hmm.
I think the other coaches kind of knew it wasn't a guaranteed 2 year deal. They picked some
Hmm.
veteran coaches, giving them a shot. Um, I think it'd be crazy if D'Amico Ryan took this job without at least getting a couple years to try and learn, because he is new, and they drafted a quarterback, which is seemingly saying he's getting a new opportunity here.
Yeah. As for the weapons that Stroud will throw to, the question is, okay, a lot of people like Stroud as a prospect, but how can he do, as what will he be able to do with the talent around him? Well, what is the talent around him? You got Robert Woods, who's a fine player. Nico Collins, I also think is a fine player. And then it's kind of some question marks. Like Noah Brown's in the mix. They drafted Tank Dell in the third round, and John Mechie. I don't believe is supposed to play right away, but there is some hope that he'll play at some point this year. So there's some again there's some upside here, and not to mention with the tight ends, you have Dalton Schultz, who I think was a very good pickup, and maybe we'll see something out of Brevin Jordan, a player who was hyped up out of the draft despite kind of falling there. It's still a tier 5 receiving core though. Every team has talent. There's upside, but right now I can't go too much higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's too theoretical right now.
Yeah.
I do like Schultz a lot, and I actually think Nico Collins is a solid receiver. I don't think he's a number one, but I do think he's a pretty good receiver. And I'd like to have Brandon Cooks in this lineup, but obviously it makes sense to trade him at that point with where this team's going.
It,
So a little bit. I mean,
I wasn't a fan of it.
it made sense for Brandon Cooks' perspective.
Well,
Perspective.
sure, he helped it. I felt like if I'm the Texans, I want to help out my young quarterback, give him a receiver to throw to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, I mean, I think Collins is solid. I was a big Tank Dell fan in college. I don't know if how good
Okay.
he's going to be in the NFL, but I liked him in college a lot. I liked Mechie a lot too. Obviously, a lot of circumstances that he wasn't able to play last year. So hopefully he's able to get on the field and create an impact. So I do think there is some upside here. Like you said, the theme of the Texans is upside. There is upside with this group, but I mean, I still think, a receiving core with Nico Collins is close to the worst receiving core in the NFL.
Yeah. The Texans or the Texans, the halfback room is a little better. I like Damian Pierce a good deal. I'm Damian Pierce's number one fan. Had him as the number one running back in that draft class. Also, I like Devin Singletary a good deal too
Mhm.
for a number 2 guy. So, tier 2 running back room.
Yeah, no notes. Pierce is good.
Hmm.
I mean, he
Yeah.
showed he was pretty good. I guess, I don't even know like anything else to add to that. I mean, I think he's good. I don't know if
I
he's
mean,
ever
he
going to
was
be
their
like,
offense at times last year.
yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to be a tier one running back,
Hmm.
but I think he could be a high end tier two for, however long his running back career lasts.
Yeah, yeah, very good, and has a solid offensive line in front of him. There's some
Mhm.
notes here, for sure. I mean, for the tackle position, you have Laramie Tunsil on one side, and then Titus Howard on the other side. That's definitely, I think, a solid. I mean, again, what are we getting out of Howard? He's been a very up and down player, but tends to be pretty good at the tackle position. So, a good tackle tandem. They added Shaq Mason in his yearly getting traded for nothing, situation, and Juice Scruggs, the second round rookie at the center position, should be, I didn't love him coming out of college. Doesn't have the best analytics, but even if he's not great, you can get by with an okay center right away. The Kenyon Green thing is, that was a mess last year. He was
Hmm.
debatably the worst guard in football after they overdrafted him in the middle of the first round. So many people felt like they overdrafted him. So they want to see a big step up from him. Due to some question marks on the inside, I'm going tier 3 offensive line, but there's some good stuff here.
Yeah, there is good stuff, and it starts with Larry Tunzel, who's one of the best left tackles in the league. I mean, he's still
Hmm.
fantastic. He's worth every penny they're paying him, and he's just carved out a good career. I mean, I know he was hyped up pre-draft, obviously had that stuff go on, but ever since then, he's kind of proven his worth and proven his ability. Um, this is the question when it comes to the Texans, and we're going to talk about it even more on the defensive side of the ball. Is their draft their player development has not been great. I
Right.
think, across the board. And part of the reason why this team not only hasn't been good the last few years, but also isn't getting better is because they haven't really developed a lot of that talent. Um, and it comes down to, Kenyon Green, like you said, I mean, he was the worst guard in football last year. Like, just bar none, he was horrible. I don't
Hmm.
even think the most optimistic Texans fan could say he was good last year. So
Yeah.
maybe it gets better. We've seen offensive linemen take huge leaps lately. Maybe he's one of those guys that just needed a year of getting beat up a little and it gets better. And then Juice Scruggs, like you said, how is he going to handle year one starting center? Those are big questions. But like you said, I mean, Howard, Tunzel, and Mason, that's a pretty good framework for a decent offensive line. If they can develop those other guys, this could be a very good offensive line.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's go to the defense. You brought up the secondary. It's fascinating. I think Derek Stingley to me is the question in this secondary. He's someone who, came in. They drafted him above Sauce Gardner. I'm sure no one's regretting that at all. Everyone's still happy that they had Sauce Gardner as the guy, or they didn't have Sauce Gardner. I mean, it does suck when you're between two corners and the guy that you draft doesn't play very well, and the guy that you don't draft ends up being like looking like a superstar corner. That's never ideal. But
Yeah.
he Stingley still I think showed flashes despite maybe some poor numbers. And that's what you hang up, on hope for if you're Houston. There were some flashes, and corners do sometimes take a next step the next year. You also have, Steven Nelson in the mix. Tavier Thomas has definitely shown some nice stuff. Shaquille Griffin is there. So you have other guys. If Stingley plays well, this could be a good secondary. Jimmy Ward, and you also have Jalen Petier, who's another guy who definitely showed flashes as a rookie. I think you're hoping to see more out of him this year. So definitely, talking upside, this is a very boomer bust position group. I'm going to go tier 4 for now because I haven't seen it. And, like I said, if I haven't seen it, I'm going to grade it pretty harshly, but I could see absolutely this being a lot better.
I agree. I mean, especially when you look at a guy like, I mean, every other year, Shaquille Griffin looks like a top 20 corner in the NFL, and he's like their fourth or fifth guy theoretically on the depth chart right now,
Uh
right?
huh.
And so, I mean, that could be a pretty good player too, just sitting there if one of these younger guys doesn't take a leap forward. He's gonna at least come in and be pretty serviceable. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like you said, Stanley showed a lot of flashes. Pitcher is another guy who I had some pretty high expectations for. I really liked him in college. Uh, saw some of it, but I do think there is some things he's gonna have to get better at. But yeah, I mean, there's a chance that in a couple of years, this is a tier one group. But there has got to be development, right? This has definitely got to get better from some of these guys, and that's going to be the biggest question heading into this season.
Yeah. Also, realized I forgot to put the banner up, so just put that up now. Sorry, Texans fans, just tuning in. We've been talking about your team for about 10 minutes. Completely agree with everything you just said. Well done, Kyle. Moving on to the front seven. Again, there's some intrigue here. I think Will Anderson Jr. is the most interesting guy in the mix right here, and you do have other interesting players. The edge rusher, you have Jerry Hughes, Jonathan Grenard in the mix for the interior defensive lineman. You have Sheldon Rankings and Malik Collins, who I assume would be the two starters. Also, Hassan Ridgeway. For the linebackers, you have Denzel Perryman, Corey Littleton, and Christian Harris. Perriman and Littleton have definitely had success in the past. Littleton, they drafted in the 3rd round last year. Kyle, I know you love to look at certain wild Pro Football Focus numbers. Christian Harris in 711 snaps, so he had a good amount of playing time. A 28.3 Pro Football Focus grade.
That's not ideal.
No, by far the worst in football last year. I mean, usually you see that kind of grade, and it's like they played like 30 snaps, and that's why it's so low.
Yeah. That's not going to cut it. Hopefully, he gets a little better this season. They need him to get a little better, but there is some stuff here. I think this pass rush could be pretty interesting. Um, like you said, Rankins has had some good seasons, so I mean, there is some I think upside on this defensive line. Perriman's solid too in the middle there, but yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is just going to be this pass rush where I mean, we can have the Will Anderson conversation like. I do think he has defensive rookie of the year upside this year. I do think he can
Hmm.
be that. Obviously, he was the third pick, and he was, extremely talented at college and extremely productive. I just hate the trade. I hate the trade. I hate
Yeah.
the idea of trading up for a defensive end, and I think it might come back to bite him this year, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, two things can be true. Like he can be a good player, and also it can be a bad trade where he basically has to be a superstar just to break even with the amount of value they gave up. I mean, they gave up this year's first round pick, and for spoiler alert, I am going tier 5 run defense and pass rush right now. I'm predicting a 4-13 season for the Texans, by far so far the lowest prediction I have in the AFC.
Yeah, like it actually seems possible that Will Anderson could win defensive rookie of the year, and the Texans could finish with the worst record in football.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's
it's
possible that he
crazy.
wins defensive rookie of the year, and I still hate the trade.
Yeah, because they're gonna lose an opportunity at even if Stroud's pretty good this year, even if he shows a bunch of flashes,
Hmm.
like just the opportunity that you could have traded that pick, like that pick a year later is more valuable than Will Anderson.
Right.
Like let's say they end up with in a Caleb Williams Drake May pick scenario, they're the first or second team in the draft. That pick's more valuable than what they traded it for, which is Will
Y-
Anderson. Just
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, there's two ways that the Texans look back at this and say, we're glad we made the trade. The one is if Will Anderson is legitimately like a superstar. Like he looks, he comes in and he has like 15 sacks this year. The other is if you win like 9 games. Like that, those are the two ways you look at this. And so for Houston, which one is it going to be? I don't think either. I think Will Anderson will be good. I think the Texans, there's some upside and maybe they could be better. I think it's more likely that the Texans end up winning enough games that they don't regret the trade as much, then Will Anderson plays good enough that they don't regret the pick. Just because like there's only so much you can do as an edge rusher to get that much value. I mean,
Yeah,
that's 2 first round picks, one of them potentially being a top 5 pick, and a second and a third. Like that's significantly more than the Bears gave up to get Khalil Mack. Like it's a ton of value.
yeah. I did have the Texans winning 5 games. I had them at 5-12, so I have them
Okay.
marginally over your number. I do not have them with the worst record in football, actually, but they are in range.
Yeah. The community poll had them 4% had the Texans winning, actually tied for third in the division.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We're gonna get to the next team.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So an interesting team. I still think this is the rebuilding year, but there is some intrigue for them. Let's move on, why don't we? Let's talk about number 3 on the list. Where are you going?
The bottom two feels pretty obvious.
Hmm.
This is going to be the Indianapolis Colts again for me. You had two teams in this division. Picking in the top five, I had them going 1-2 here or 3-4 here in the bottom of the standings. I guess the question for Indianapolis is what went wrong outside of the Jeff Saturday thing. What went wrong last year? Why did this seemingly? There were some injuries. I'm willing to give them some of the injury passes, but this is a defense that before Matt Eberflus left last season was always very good. It was always solid. Why did it fall off a cliff last season? Why did this offensive line, which was always solid, fall off a cliff last season? I'm not as shocked as some of the people that Anthony Richardson's going to start week one because he was going to start eventually this season. I just think it was a matter of when rather than if. I do think he is a project quarterback though, so I do think this is going to take time, and it's probably going to hurt the Colts this season. So I got the Colts here at 3. You could talk me into 4 honestly because I do think Richardson is that much of a project, but I do think there's enough upside here and enough talent here that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Keyran, after I mentioned that the Texans would win 4% said the Texans would win the division. He said 4% needs medical checks. Also, another 4% said the Colts would win the division. And they're in similar spots, right? I mean, we brought up the D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud thing. Well, it's the Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen thing. Two unproven people at this point, but reason to believe either one could be really good. Also, reason to believe they could both flame out, which is kind of what makes the Colts maybe even a more interesting version of the Texans this year.
Yeah. It definitely has the possibility. Richardson is, everything that we've talked about, some of the quarterbacks of the last couple of years, whether it's, the most recent one we're talking about has been Trey Lance, um, Mitch Trubisky, all
Mhm.
this kind of stuff. It's the highly enticing physical traits with the extremely low sample size. He was a backup at Florida 2 years ago. And it seemed like every time he stepped foot on the field, he was having a 60-yard touchdown, whether he was throwing it or running it. Then last year, he gets his first full year as a starter. Um, and there was some really good, the Utah game, week 1 of the season. There's also some really bad, the Kentucky game. You can go back and watch that one for the Florida Gators. So it's going to be interesting to see how Richardson performs. I think he has been extremely nitpicked when it comes to videotape, more so than a lot of other rookie quarterbacks in this draft. And I think some of it's justified. I think some of it's unjustified. But I do think there is a heck of a ton of talent here. This is somebody I've watched since high school. And every time I've seen him play, he is one of the 4 or 5 best high school athletes I've ever seen. I do think he has that sort of upside that he could dominate football games against almost anybody because he is that good of an athlete. But how is the development going to happen? How is he going to handle the pressure of being an NFL quarterback is the biggest question.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, in the preseason, he's looked as advertised in both ways. I mean, he's made some
Hmm.
terrible throws. He's had some incredible athletic plays. It's going to be a roller coaster, and I'm kind of believing the hype with him, to be honest. Like, I think that I see a very Justin Fields esque rookie year here for Richardson. That's my prediction, but I'm still going tier 5 for now, just because I'm proven, and tier 4 with head coach.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I do think there's a ton of upside. We'll see how it plays out year 1.
Yeah. The receiving core is, I think, definitely an upgrade from Houston's. There's guys that like, I like Michael Pittman. I think he's a solid player. I don't know, how good he is. Is he a great number one? He can play the number one role at the very least. Like, he's not like someone who you love as a number one, but he can at least do it. Alec Pierce showed flashes. I think we want to see a bit more consistency from him. Doesn't really get a ton of separation, but kind of doesn't need it. Makes catches when he's not getting a ton of separation. You also have, as a third option, you got Jelani Woods and Mo Alley Cox at the tight end position, who is kind of the main thing. They did draft Josh Downs in the 3rd round this year, so he's someone who I think they hope could be a potential third option. They don't love to get receivers through free agency, but they have a decent receiving core here. I'm going to go tier 3 receiving core, and then halfback room. I'm going tier 5 unless Jonathan Taylor comes back, which I don't think is happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like now they are not playing trade him, or maybe they're just trying to entice bigger offers. We'll see. But I mean,
Mhm.
it's not good if he's not playing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been a bizarre situation. We don't have to get into all that. But I mean, I like Pittman. I really do. I think he's really good. Like you said, maybe he's not a high end tier 1 guy, but I think he
Mhm.
could be a low end tier 1, or not tier 1, but like he could be a lower end number 1 option for sure and be solid at it and be productive. And then
Michael Pittman is a great number 2. You want him in an ideal scenario. I think you want him as a great number 2, right? Like a T
yeah,
Higgins.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's probably fair.
Mhm.
Um, and that's probably where he'll end up having his best time of his career. But he is the number 1 here, and I think it's going to be okay. I do think that's good for Richardson though, because I do think he's a solid option at least. Like you said, Pierce has shown flashes. I'm a big Josh Downs fan. I liked him in the draft. I do think he has a ton of talent, and he was productive in North Carolina. So I do think he has the opportunity to be a pretty good receiver too. So. I like this group. There is still upside there, and it's all young, talented guys.
Yeah, and I like the offensive line as well.
Mhm.
This is I have still I know it was weird. Basically, what I'm guessing is that everyone who had a career down year last year will not have a career down year again this year. At least some, because it was across the board. They just all had a bad year. Although, except for one guy, Bernard Rainman was a really weird situation. So I remember he was projected to go round 2. He was one of my guys. I was saying round 1, got to go round 1. He fell to round 3, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm stupid. Maybe that's not. And then he ended up playing like a great first rounder right away. He was a good tackle when he finally got onto the field. So
Yeah.
he's someone who you have hope could be a franchise left tackle that you only had to spend a third round pick on. Braden Smith, another good tackle at the right tackle position. Quentin Nelson, we all know what he can do. Ryan Kelly, we all know what he can do. And then you have a Will Fries, who's probably the weak link in the mix here. He was, a 7th round pick from a couple of years ago. Last year, he sort of played like a 7th rounder. So one weak link, but even that, I still think he could be a solid guard. So when you add all that together, it's tier 2 for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's not a lot of weak links, but at the same time, I don't know if there is Quentin Nelson riding on reputation at this point. Like
It's
he,
hard to
he's
say.
he's
I
still
mean,
fine, but like
mhm.
there was a time where he was regarded as like the best offensive lineman in football, and I don't think he's close to that anymore.
Yeah, well, if you look at PFF grades, his first 3 seasons, he finished third among guards, second among guards, and then third among guards again, right out of the gate, starting off hot. Last 2 years, it hasn't been terrible, but he's been a 26th and then a 20th guard in football. So I just don't know. I don't know which one is the Quentin Nelson. They're both good players. Like
Yeah,
regardless of what it is, you're still happy to have him. But obviously, you'd like him to be one of the best guards in football instead of a like top 10 left guard.
yeah. I mean that's the difference, right? Like he is
Mhm.
probably, this is probably closer to tier one if he's the guy who was the elite guy, but we just haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We also have for the defense for the Colts, another thing where it was inconsistent last year. The defense was they've have some young players in the secondary. They're hoping to see step up. You have they drafted Darius. Or actually, they drafted Darius Rush, and now he's no longer on the team. You also have Julius Brents in the mix. They drafted him in round 2. I think they're hoping that he can be someone who can step up. You have Kenny Moore, who certainly can show flashes at the corner position, and kind of just a lot of like really unknowns. I'm not even sure who the third corner is supposed to be at this point. I don't know if Jalen Jones, the 7th round draft pick, is going to be the guy. The safety position, Rodney Thomas and Julian Blackman. I don't think are disasters, but kind of both guys. I think you'd want as like a number 3 safety for both of them. So yeah,
Tier
I
five.
mean there's some things here, but honestly, you could make an argument this is the worst secondary on paper in football, Kyle.
Yeah, it's tier five.
Yeah.
I mean, these corners have kind of, what they had a few years ago compared to what they have now is just not. It's not it, right? It's not going to be ideal. I really, I didn't wear my Valdosta State hat. My guy Kenny Moore, I think
Hmm.
he's incredibly talented. I have a huge amount of respect for him. The problem is that he's a 5'9" slot corner who is probably their number one corner right now.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's not ideal. I think Kenny Moore is really good in the system that allows
Mhm.
Kenny Moore to be what he's really good at. He's going to be asked to do way too much here, unless a couple of these younger guys get a lot better and really show that they can play. I'm not convinced that's going to happen in year one. So yeah, I'm concerned. It's tier five.
Yeah. And as for the front 7, it's better. Hard to get a lot worse. It's better. The headliner is still DeForest Buckner, who's a very good interior defensive lineman. I feel like they could use some help. I mean, Grover Stewart, I guess, is you're not mad at that as a number 2 interior defensive lineman. Tavin Byron, a solid interior supporting cast for Buckner. And you have on the outside Quiddy Pay, who I think has been very good. I don't think he's quite lived up to the draft pick yet, but he's still been a very good player for them. Also, Deo Ndegabo, a very interesting, player, the 286-pound edge rusher who, is a solid outside player. I'm not mad at really either of these situations. Also, got to bring up the linebackers. Shaq Leonard will hopefully be back in the mix when he's at his best. He looks like he's one of the best linebackers in football, but missed last year due to injury. I'm not sure if the other guy is going to be Zaire Franklin at the off-ball linebacker position. They kind of have a bit of a hole there. I think I'm going to go tier 3 pass rush, because I do think that having someone like Buckner just does a lot for the pass rush on the inside, and I do like Kwity Paye, and then tier 4 run defense here.
Uh, I think that's fair. Like if Pay pans out, it could be a pretty good pass rush. I am a little concerned, but we'll see. Uh, and then, I mean, Shaq Leonard is a huge part of this defense, right? Like
Yeah.
he fixes a lot. He helps with a lot of the coverage stuff. He helps with the run defense. I mean, a lot of it gets better if Shaq Leonard's healthy and at his best. So we'll see how he pans out this season and how healthy he is. Um, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is like, you know, if this goes south, is are guys like Buckner is Buckner on the trading block if this goes south?
It would make sense. I mean, but again, we know how the NFL is. The NFL doesn't love to trade players, or they'll do it like Brandon Cooks, where they don't trade him when it makes the most sense. They wait a couple years and then trade him.
Yeah. There is real number one pick potential here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I have them going 6-11, so only two
Yeah.
spots ahead of the Texans and Cardinals, who I have both as the worst team in football, tied right now.
Yeah, I had them at 5 and 12. So I had them tied with the Texans. They won on tiebreaker by my standings. But like,
Hmm.
I mean, there's a chance that A, this team can't throw, and B, this team can't cover. And, if Pay's not one, if Pay doesn't take a leap, this team can't rush the passer either. So
Yeah.
what do you say about a team that can't throw, can't cover, and can't rush the passer? You're probably going to lose a lot of football games. So
Hmm.
uh, there is number one pick potential here. Uh,
Yeah, and who knows how Richardson's going to play too? Like he could have, even as I think probably a pretty big Richardson fan at this point, but he could totally have a disastrous rookie year. Like that's totally in the cards.
yeah. So I don't know. It feels weird to talk about the Colts in this light. I mean, how many times have the Colts been this questionable heading into a season that like Peyton Manning wasn't hurt? Like it's basically none.
Yeah, yeah, because once they, yeah, it's probably been probably the last time was the year that they ended up drafting Peyton Manning. Like that's probably you probably have to go back before Peyton Manning was drafted for the Colts for us to be going into the season saying, yeah, the Colts could end up with the worst overall pick, not counting a year where their superstar quarterback gets injured.
Yeah. Um, so it's a lot of questions for the Colts, but at the same time, there is the scenario where if a few things hit, I think this could be a 6-7 win team and be a little more competitive than we thought too. But I don't know if this team's challenging for a playoff spot next season.
I did just have the thought it would be kind of funny if they ended up finishing first overall and drafting Caleb Williams. That would just be the most Colts thing ever.
Yeah, I could see it. That would be
Uh-huh.
funny.
Yeah, I think the Patriots fan maybe not finding it quite as funny.
Not as funny, but at the same time, it's very real scenario.
Okay. Two teams left, and I forgot to put the banner up again. I am just on fire with the banners tonight. Apologies, Colts fans who are looking for their team. Here, I'll put the banner up for 1 second so I can tell anyone who's tuning in late. Okay. Colts fans, my bad. Forgot to put up the banner, but we just talked about your team for the past 15 minutes. All right, Kyle. I'm doing great, aren't I?
You're on fire. Let's keep it going.
Let's keep it going. There are two teams left in this division. Two teams left to preview. And then we're done for preseason previews. The Jaguars and Titans, the two teams that played each other for the division in the last game of the season last year, came down to a final strip sack fumble touchdown for the Jaguars to win. Who do you have finishing second this year?
So I had these teams separated by a game. I had one team going 9-8 and one team going 8-9. And lo and behold, they play each other the last week of the year again
Oh,
in Tennessee for potentially for the division. I actually didn't have that game decided in the division, so there's a 2 game separation before that. That being said, I have the Tennessee Titans finishing second.
okay.
And I don't feel confident about it. I think they can win this division.
Hmm.
And I've been talking up Jacksonville a little bit this offseason, but I do believe they can win this division. There's still a lot to really like about this. Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry. There's always the chance that this is the year Derrick Henry falls off the cliff. I'll believe it when I see it at this point because he's defied those odds. Um, there is one thing I'm really concerned about this Tennessee team, and I don't think they can block. And I don't know how much, they run a lot of play action, so maybe it won't matter as much. But how do they protect their quarterback situation? Because we saw what happened when they didn't have Ryan Tannehill. It didn't look good. They've drafted quarterbacks the last 2 years, so maybe they have a little bit of insurance there. But it hasn't looked good when Ryan Tannehill is not in there. and I'm just concerned about their ability to block from this season. I think they upgraded at skill position. I'm hoping for a healthy Treylon Burks. Um, but I have them finishing second at 8-9, and I think they're really close to the division. I could see them easily winning this division again. Um, but we'll see what happens with Tennessee.
Yeah, we will see what happens with Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill is a very interesting player because I think we all kind of agree he's a good quarterback. Probably shouldn't be getting one of the biggest contracts in football. He is one of the most highest. He is one of the most high paid quarterbacks this season according to Cap Hit. But they need him healthy. And kind of one thing that people forget about with Miami is part of why they moved off of Tannehill was because he kept getting injured. Kind of the joke was once the Titans got him was, oh yeah, perfect. Because Mariota's only going to play 8 games and Tannehill's only going to play 8 games. So now they have both of them. Um, you know, I know you're not as into the preseason as I am. I don't know who is as into the preseason as I am. I think that might just be a me thing. But Malik Willis, Will Levis got a little bit of a sample size, did not look good. He looked Malik Willis like out there, and then Malik Willis actually looked competent out there. He, from having a bad preseason last year, he has taken steps forward. And, he is a guy who we thought was a project. So maybe that's the upside, but really they need Tannehill to stay healthy.
Yeah. Uh, Willis, I mean, I don't mind them drafting these quarterbacks and taking a shot on them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
maybe, I still think Willis does have upside despite it being, not ideal last year. But he was a project guy, I think, going into last season as it went. My issue is, like, would it have been bad to keep Josh Dobbs? you know,
Right.
like, I don't know, maybe cut bait with one of them and keep Josh Dobbs. I thought he was a solid backup.
Yeah.
Just in case, as we've talked about Tannehill, he's not exactly the healthiest guy. So I am concerned if one of these guys have to step into the game year one. Year one for Levis and year two for Willis.
The Titans are a weird team. I'm gonna go with the halfback room now. I'm still gonna give him tier one halfback with obviously Derrick Henry, but he is definitely someone where like they're just a weird team. They're the only team in football, really, not the only team, but they're kind of here's what they are. They're the only team in football who's made their actual game plan building around a running back and have had success doing it.
Yeah.
More than like being a fringe playoff team, success doing it.
Yeah. I guess the thing is like, can you win a Super Bowl doing it? I'd still say probably not.
Hmm.
But they found ways to rack up a lot of wins, keep continuing to do it. So yeah, I
Hmm.
mean it's continued to work. Derrick Henry's awesome, and they've given him some help too this year. I think Tyjae Spears is a really intriguing backup. You know,
Hmm.
I went
Yeah.
I went and watched Caleb Williams in person at AT&T Stadium against Tulane for the Cotton Bowl. The only solution Tulane had to stopping Caleb Williams was handed the ball to Tyjae Spears and say, "Score with Caleb Williams." And Tyjae Spears did it that entire game. He
Hmm.
basically hung with Caleb Williams that entire time, and it was pretty incredible performance. Now, granted, USC's defense is not great, but he's got the juice to him too. So that is a pretty dynamic backfield, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, totally with you that it should be. And we kind of talked about the AJ Brown trade last year as a major disaster, and it's in many ways it still was. I don't think we're looking at that as like, oh yeah, they that worked out. People have brought up like, hey, the Titans. AJ Brown did, have some injury issues before going over, and it had a full year healthy with Philadelphia. So maybe it's there's some luck factor there, but still, I did like what Jalen Burks did in the 393 snaps he had last year for Tennessee. I thought that he did good. You have Nick Westbrook Akeen, who I think is an interesting player. And oh yeah, that DeAndre Hopkins guy, they added him. I thought we kind of forgot about that. But he is someone who they're hoping will be the AJ Brown of this. And for the tight ends, you have Chigozium Okonwu. He's someone who's graded well according to PFF. So definitely, could be a nice option as the fourth round selection from a year ago. I don't remember how I evaluated him, but yeah, he's someone who's also in the mix. It should be much better than last year. I think I'm going to go tier 3 because I think Hopkins still has it. I think that he hasn't been able to get a full 17 games. Maybe that's a part of the concern due to either injury or suspension. when I see him on the field, he still looks like an elite number one. And if he is, Burks can be at number two. And again, they don't sort of run their offense the same way of having two receivers on the outside, just try and win. They have kind of what we said all last year was it's a receiving core built with role players, but they need a number one. Well, now they maybe have one, and it could be a potentially good receiving core.
And you know what? I wasn't as high on Burks in the draft process, but it could be two number ones if he's good too. And then you
Uh-huh.
mentioned Kyle Phillips is a guy who showed flashes his rookie year too. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there is some intrigue there between those two guys and Hopkins. I mean, the big thing is DeAndre Hopkins can't be what Julio Jones was to them.
Right.
And just not this was the beginning of him falling off the cliff. But I don't think he's not quite to where he was like the best receiver in football, but like you said, he's still pretty dynamic. And I mean, there's still not many guys that are better contested catch guys than DeAndre Hopkins in the league. I mean, that is just something that it seems like is going to age with him.
Kyle, this offensive line's tough. There's no
Tier
getting
five.
around it. This is a tough offensive line. Now, again, there's hope. Like Peter Skoronski hopefully will come in and play well. That's what you're hoping. They have looks like Aaron Brewer is going to transition from left guard to center. You have, I guess, for the tackle position, because it seems like Skoronski's going to play guard. So for tackles, I don't know. Nicholas Petit Friere is in the mix. Andre Dillard, like, is he going to end up being a starter? Is Dylan Raduns going to take the next step? This is a tough situation. You have Daniel Brunskill, who looks like he will be the other guard, who might be the highlight of this roster. When I did my original offensive line rankings, I ended up putting it at tier 4, but that feels too high. I'm putting it at tier 5.
Yeah. PFF did their offensive line rankings in June, and Tennessee ranked 32nd.
And they haven't added anybody since then. I don't probably right. I can't think of someone they've added in the past couple months.
They have not.
Mm-hmm.
Their left tackle option right now is the one offensive lineman who played bad in Philadelphia.
Yeah, you can't blame that on the situation.
Yeah, the one offensive lineman who played bad in Philadelphia is their starting left tackle. Like you said, maybe Skoronski is the guy day one. He's awesome. I did like Paris Johnson a little more because I thought Paris Johnson's athleticism prevented a little more upside. The thing with Skoronski though was that he's multi-positional. He could play tackle guard, and then the second thing was that he's the more NFL ready guy. And I
Yeah.
do think there is a chance that he's good day one. But that's asking a lot of a rookie, whether he's playing guard tackle, to be your number one guy day one.
Yeah, I could see this being a pretty solid interior. I guess that's the one thing that you look at is maybe with Brunskill and Skoronski, Brewer just has to play okay. And then, and again, they're going to run the ball a lot. So maybe that's all they need. But the other thing I would say is they have had success with bad offensive lines in the past. So, they're when there's a unique team that kind of break the rules a little bit, but I think they would still like to have a tackle or two here. Well, I don't know why they kind of neglected it. Maybe it's just a rebuilding year. Who knows?
Yeah, it is a major concern for me still. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I think the two biggest things that we've seen work to solve bad offensive line play or bad offensive linemen is have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback because he's going to manipulate the snap count like crazy, or
Mm-hmm.
B, run a lot of play action. And I don't think anybody runs more play action than Tennessee. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I would imagine they're near the top of the league year after year, just by the nature of their scheme. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that minimizes their risk a lot, but it is a concern for me.
Yeah, does help the offensive linemen when they get a run block just as much as they pass block. Absolutely. Then there is evidence to support that. And got a couple more thoughts about the bad offensive line. Probably not great. One of the things we said was got to make sure your quarterback stays healthy. To then talk about the rough tackle position, that might be a little concern.
Yeah, that would be a little bit of a concern as an understatement.
Yeah, and the other thing is what helps bad offensive line is having good receivers. I mean, I did a full video on how having an elite wide receiver actually helps protect your quarterback more than having an elite offensive lineman. Getting a guy who can get open consistently helps a ton. They maybe have an elite receiver, but if Hopkins doesn't hit, this could be a disaster. I mean, a lot is riding on Hopkins being good.
Yeah. He also hasn't I mean, he's been good at separation. He was one of the best receivers in football, but it's not
Hmm.
like his most positive trait, right? Like obviously
Hmm.
he has a lot he's good at a lot of different things, but I would say that's probably the weakest part of his game is his separation. He just catches the ball no matter what though.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. So which is you could help to catch the ball and throw it right up to Hopkins.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. So we'll see how well that works. The coverage, excuse me, the coverage unit is interesting. Defense is I think better than the offense here for
Mhm.
Tennessee, and this is kind of what you look towards. The Titans are going to run the ball and play good defense. Titans are Todd Bowles' dream. It seems like with how they're constructed. And you have players here. Amani Hooker, Christian Fulton, Roger McCreary, Kendall Vildor, a lot of young players in the mix, and a couple veterans as well who could potentially be good at the corner position, and they kind of use them in different ways. Also, they signed Sean Murphy Bunting, who's been a very good slot corner in a bit of a different scheme, but he should still fit well for Tennessee. Kevin Byard has been in the best safety in football position for a while, so he's definitely obviously someone who you like. I'm not sure exactly who I guess I'm Lonnie Hooker. I mentioned him as a safety. He'll probably be the other. I mentioned him as a corner. He'll be the other safety for them. So yeah, I mean, good coverage unit. I'm going tier two.
Yeah, I really like this group. Bayard obviously leads the way. Um, Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. I think this defense can be really good defense in the secondary, especially, and then their pass coverage. And I like a lot of what they did this off season. Like you said, Murphy Bunting, I thought was a good signing. He's a guy I've always liked in Tampa Bay. We're gonna get to the linebackers too and what they do, but I think they covered pretty well. And I think Al Shair as a pass rusher too also helps in that regard. So I do think there is some interesting elements to this team.
Yeah, you brought up Alshair. Let's go to the front seven, which it all starts with Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, he's just one of those guys who just makes everything so much easier for the defensive line. I think they've put out some pretty mediocre edge rushers in the past and still had good, consistent pass rush numbers due to the good work of Jeffrey Simmons. And I think this is not one of those years where they're just putting out mediocre talent around him. I think they have actively good talent around him with Tier Tart and Danico Antri on the
Mhm.
inside. The edge rush, you have Alshir, as you mentioned, Harold Landry. They got Arden Key, who's become one of my guys. Arden Key, just a great rotational edge rusher. He is the prototypical rotational edge rusher you want. He was great for Jacksonville. Should have been a starter over Trayvon Walker, but that's a conversation for another day. We'll get to that in a minute. A lot of good stuff with the defensive line here for Tennessee, and then for the linebackers, I brought up Alshir. You have Monty Rice also in the mix. So some good stuff here for Tennessee. I think I'm going to go. I don't know. I think I'm going to go tier twos across the board once again for Tennessee. A very complete defense.
Yeah, very solid across the board. There's not a lot of weak links. I guess you can maybe say second pass rusher is the weak link. Like, is Harold Landry the third going to be the guy there? Is he good enough to be that guy?
Hmm.
Maybe as a secondary pass rusher, you're okay with it. Um, I know you're not his biggest fan, so probably won't hear too much pushback from you on that one.
Hmm.
But overall, that is probably, that's as good as it gets front seven wise. And like you said, Jeffrey Simmons, I think is a underrated player of the year candidate. He's not going to get the counting stats to win it, but he is one of the most impactful defensive players in football.
Yeah, and also just it's unlikely that a Titan player will win Defensive Player of the Year, just because you don't get the attention that you get in other places.
Clay Travis agrees, so.
I think that I think Jeffrey Simmons is a Defensive Player of the Year caliber player.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's talented enough.
I'm just saying I think that he would have to go above and beyond to actually win the award.
I mean, if this is like a top 6 or 7 defense in football, like I think he's going to be in the conversation.
But then why hasn't he been in the conversation in years past?
I don't know.
I just feel
I
like there's
mean,
too much. He's never going to be a 19 sack guy. I'm just to be clear what I'm saying. I think it's possible we come away from this year saying he was the most impactful defender in football. I just don't think the
yeah,
50 voters come away with it saying that, because I don't think he's going to be able to rack up a number to do it. And I think that a lot of what he does is kind of goes underrated.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, why? I guess the thing with why hasn't he been it before? Like, he's only played 4 years. Like, I think the only time you could bring up the
Hmm.
conversation for him was probably last year. Um, I think
Hmm.
the counting stats to me is the biggest thing over playing in Tennessee, anything like
Yeah, you're
that. Is
probably right.
that
Hmm.
it's just this is an award that has historically gone to edge rushers, and it's probably going to
Hmm.
continue to go to edge rushers. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Except for the one
obviously,
year that Shaq Barrett led the league in sacks, and they gave it to your guy instead.
well, Stephon Gilmore. I told you that year he's the best defensive player in football.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, we don't need to do the Gilmore Barrett discussion again.
Uh, all that matters is I won.
I guess so. Yeah. So great way to finish the Titans discussion. No. You know, again, this is the Titans are going to be the Titans. They're going to run the ball well. They're going to play good defense. They're going to win 9 games. I have them going 9-8.
Yeah, I had him at 8-9. I think it's close. I could see them winning 9 games too. Um, my only concern, along with the offensive line, is the identity of this team and what basically this roster is going to be. I mean, it's not really hard to say what the script is going to be for this team. They're going to play every game slow. Every game's
Mm-hmm.
going to be slow. They're going to play
8
long possession.
possessions each
Yeah,
game.
long possessions. They're playing slow. They're going to rely on their defense to win. It's going to look like one of the best teams in the league in 2003. That being
Mm-hmm.
said, like that works, especially if it's your identity, it works to win some games, but it
Mm-hmm.
also leaves you open to lose some games that you shouldn't.
Right.
Like there is a chance like they could go into let me look at the schedule here. Um, like week 10 at Tampa Bay. There's a chance that
Oh man, that game's gonna take 2 hours and 15 minutes to be done.
I know.
To be done.
Yeah, I mean like I think they're a better team than Tampa Bay, but there is a chance like they can't outmuscle Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a really good defense. It's a slow game, and then all of a sudden it takes one Baker Mayfield drive for Tampa Bay to win that game like 13-10. I think that's something that could be in the cards for them. I could look at a game like what's another one on here? There are games like that across
Well,
the
I mean, just
schedule.
off the they play the Colts and Texans twice each, just being in the division.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there is an opportunity for a lesser team to beat them because of the style they play, but there is also an opportunity for like Miami Monday night, December 11th, that they go and
Mhm.
win that game because they make it this dogfight that the Dolphins aren't ready to play because it's not their style.
Right. The Titans being underdogs has never stopped them before. You think they should be underdogs. Uh, the Jaguars you have winning the division. Kyle, only 11% picked the Titans to win the division. A resounding 81% of the community
Wow.
tab have the Jaguars winning. That is most out of any division that we did this year. The majority, according to the community poll, the Jaguars had the best chance of winning their division in out of any team in football this year.
That's extreme.
Mm,
And like I said, I had them one game apart. I had the Jaguars at 9-8. I do have them winning this division. I do think Trevor Lawrence has MVP upside. Whether he sees it this year or not is a bigger question. I don't think he will this year, but I do think he gets better and gets maybe closer to that range. I think he's got good skill position guys. I mean, it's been a while for Calvin Ridley to play football, so maybe we'll see on that. But I do think he can be pretty good in this offense, especially. So yeah, I'm excited for the offense. I do have some concerns similarly for their offensive line, but I don't think it's as big of concerns as me because I just like some of their stuff a little bit more, and I like Lawrence a little bit more, and his ability to run, I think adds even more to it. I think he's a better runner than Tannehill. Tannehill's not a bad runner, but I don't think he's as good, especially at this age. Um, the defense, I think the biggest thing when it comes to Jacksonville is can they get to the quarterback? Can they rush the passer? I think it's their biggest question, but I do think this is a pretty good secondary. I like the upside of this secondary, and I like the upside of this passing game. So I got Jacksonville winning this division.
yeah, you brought up the for Trevor Lawrence. The hype has gotten out of control. The hype is all the way. He is currently has the tied for the sixth highest odds to win MVP this year. He's above Aaron Rodgers to win MVP this year. It seems a bit hot.
That would be a bit high,
Mm-hmm.
but he is very good. And if you look at how he played the second half of the year, it got a lot better week by week. I mean, he was one of the better quarterbacks in the league by the end of the year. Whether he's gonna, the biggest thing for him is going to be consistency. But he had the flashes that he looked like the guy who was taken number one overall, right? Like there is a chance there's a slim possibility he takes that leap into the next tier. and is in that conversation. But he's still not there yet. He's not there yet.
Exactly. He's on path. Like, and in fact, he's probably above on path. Like, if you look at the what route you would expect Lawrence to be on, he's probably ahead of like where you want him to be. Like, I don't know, to make like the school example of like they have like certain like reading levels they want you to be at specific points. And it's like he's a fifth grader who's like reading at like an eighth grade level. Like that still doesn't necessarily mean that he's an incredible genius. It just means that he's above his where he should be right now. I still do have him as a tier 2 quarterback though, and I have Doug Peterson as a tier 2 head coach. I still think it's a very good
Yeah.
1-2 combo with those two guys. I just think it's disrespectful to some of the other players who have been doing it for longer and who have already shown me they can be MVP candidates, who I would put ahead of Lawrence in my rankings.
Yeah. I think the problem I have is, and it drives me crazy in basketball too, because fans do the exact same thing. We are
Mhm.
absolutely spoiled by some of the younger guys nowadays who have really hit the league by taken the league by storm and really kind of just taken been awesome, year one, year two. Like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson by year two are awesome players. And, if you go to the NBA side, it's like Luka Doncic and John Morant were awesome by year two. Um,
Mhm.
and so then you look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence or in the NBA circles, someone like Jalen Green, who takes like a normal trajectory plane, and it's like, well, that's not good enough. You have to be awesome right away because those guys are all
Mhm.
stars in year two. And it's just like, no, that's not exactly how it works. Those guys being awesome does not mean that other people can't be awesome by year four. Like you just got to be patient with the process.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And you know what? Last thing I would say is I've been through this. I remember Jameis Winston was after year 2. He was a fringe MVP. He was top 10 in MVP odds that year as well. It fell off a cliff. So just because it's on track doesn't mean that it always hits. But also you remember those moments, right? So more often than not, they do end up working out. So it's not totally fair
Josh
to
Freeman too.
Well, Josh Freeman probably should have won MVP that one year. Went 10 and 6, had a bunch of fourth quarter comebacks.
He's the man.
If a stupid Greg Schiano got in the way, I still hate that guy.
Yeah, he's at Rutgers again.
Well, good for him. Hope he stays there.
Yeah. It's taking a lot of money to lose a lot of games. That's Rutgers football.
Tampa Bay football too when he was there. The
Yeah.
receiving core for the Jaguars. I've kind of been I was a Jaguars hater for a lot of last season. A lot of people were saying like, oh, they're going to be so good next year, and I was kind of like, I don't know because like, well, Lawrence is looking good. Like, how are they going to improve? Then they traded for Calvin Ridley, and then I was like, okay, this is what they had to do. That was, I think, a brilliant move. We still don't know how good Calvin Ridley is going to be though, and that's the other question. Calvin Ridley, here's a kind of a weird stat. He only has 1 year where he's had more than 900 yards. Like that's kind of a surprising stat.
Hmm.
He had 1,300 yards that year, but but still, he's really coasting off of one really good year. But again, part of it is he only played a few games in 2021 or 2020. Yeah, 2021, missed all of 2022. So that obviously plays a factor. But the idea is with him on the outside, Christian Kirk going over the middle, you have Zay Jones and Evan Ingram who can round out that receiving core. They really could have used an outside receiver last year. Now they have one. So I'm really excited to see what this receiving core can do. I'm going to give it a high tier 3, but still tier 3.
Yeah, I think that's fair because Calvin Ridley hasn't played since October 2021.
Uh-huh.
like,
Yeah.
that's a long time. And it's kind of the Deshaun Watson thing where yeah, it could be awesome, but we'll see. We haven't really seen it. Um, but yeah, I do like the upside of this group. I do think Zay Jones is solid. I think Christian Kirk has proven that he is expensive, but he is good. And even a guy like I like Jamal Agnew. I think Jamal Agnew's a good player too. He's pretty dynamic. So I think you look at those four guys, there's potential that is a really good receiving core if they all kind of work out. Evan Ingram's a solid tight end. I don't think he's a stud or anything, but he's solid. Uh, I refuse to believe that Travis Etienne can't catch the ball out of the backfield. I saw him do it too much in college. I think he's going to be good at that too. So there are a few pieces here that I think could be interesting this past game. Um, it's still kind of theoretical when you look at some of those pieces though.
Yeah. completely agree. You brought up the halfbacks. They also have Jermichael Hasty in the mix, and then of course they drafted Tank Bigsby, who I thought had a good preseason. So interested in
He's
seeing what
good.
they can.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, yeah, I like him too. And then ETN. So I'll go tier two halfback. I can't quite go tier one. Just got to save those for the elite backs. I don't know if ETN's there, but it's very good halfback room.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you that I think Bigsby could be a stud year one. I think he could take some carries away from ETN, but I think ETN's going to be impactful in multiple ways this year.
Yeah. Beaver Boys in the chat says, "Take off your shirts, guys." No.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
I just love the if I just type in all caps in the chat to take off their shirts, they'll do
Drop a super chat, maybe. I've done a
it.
lot of worse for money. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, I am not co-signing that. The offensive line here for Jacksonville is not good, Kyle. This is a tough
Mhm.
situation. I am not a huge Cam Robinson fan. He's also going to be missing the first quarter of the season. I am not a huge Anton Harrison fan. They're expecting him to step in right away as a rookie and be a good rookie right off the bat. Maybe he will be, maybe I'm wrong. Would not be the first time, but I'm kind of not holding my breath on that. They paid a lot of money for Brandon Sheriff. He didn't really live up to the contract so far. You also have Luke Fortner and Ben Barch as the other guards here for Jacksonville. So, I don't know. Are we going to get a Walker Little to come in and play some football here? I just don't love this. I don't love this offensive line at all. This is tier 5, and it's also, I looked at my notes. I actually had the Titans as the worst offensive line in football. My rankings, I read that wrong earlier. The Jaguars' third worst offensive line in football. So, hey, could be some potential good news for some pass rushers on, in this division.
Uh, yeah, yeah. Someone's getting paid.
Hmm.
Um, so I think Scherf's gonna bounce back. Like, unless this is, he's almost 32, so maybe this is the cliff moment. Similar comments to that, but at the same time, like, it's kind of the statistical anomaly season that I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's gonna be
Hmm.
better back to his kind of normal standard, which is top 15-ish guard in football. So I think that's gonna be fine. And if he and Harrison work out, then I'm not so concerned. But there is an opportunity for it.
E for boys, all caps in the chat. It's YouTube policy. That's why we have to take our shirts. I don't think that's true, B for boys.
We missed that memo. The
It's
browser,
YouTube
you mean the
policy.
browser's policy or the YouTube policy?
Yeah, maybe you were reading the wrong tube there, B for boys. That might be an issue.
Check out Jackson
The
Kruger Sports on browsers coming up next.
it's just us talking about football with our shirts off. That's the only thing.
It's the same type thing.
Yeah. The defense for Jacksonville. You brought up the secondary earlier. I think you brought up the secondary. If not, I'll bring it
I
up
did.
here because there's a lot of good young players here, and it's really exciting
Hmm.
secondary. I mean, you got Tyson Campbell, Darius Williams, Trey Herndon for safeties, Rashawn Jenkins, and Andre Cisco are in the mix. There's a lot of players who could step up to a playing a good role, and even if they don't, they should still be at least like solid. I think Tyson Campbell. Like, do we need to start talking about him as like he's a true number one corner at this point? That's how he's playing. They have depth here. I like this coverage. Maybe this is a bit hot. I'm going to go tier 2 coverage unit here.
I agree. I was gonna have a Tyson Campbell point, and I think that he is going to be the next guy regarded as a star corner in this league. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's interesting because we've talked about guys sort of being defenses catching up to offenses these last couple of years. And a lot of it has to do with scheme related stuff, the deep quarters coverage, that sort of thing, taking away a lot of explosive plays if they can. And I think a lot of it too has to do with there's a lot of good, young, talented cornerbacks. You know, obviously, Sertan Sauce Gardner are probably the first two names brought up, but I think Tyson Campbell is going to be entering that conversation. Maybe not as good as those guys, but I do think he has, top five corner potential in this league. I think he has that level of play in him. So yeah, I definitely think he's going to be regarded as a star. And I mean, I look at that like I think Jenkins going to have a better season. They have some decent players here. Andre Cisco is a really nice player too. So there are some good players in this secondary.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. One Nation Underground in the chat at Beaver Boys. Why do I keep seeing you everywhere telling everyone to take their shirts off? Is this a thing? Is the Beaver Boys just going around to different live streams telling people to take their shirts off?
What an incredible way to spend your time.
Do you think the Beaver Boys just like on lunch break, like, I gotta get someone to take their shirt off?
Beaver Boys, what do you do for a living? I need to know. What do you do to have this time to just try and get people to take their shirts off?
Yes. Our next podcast will be a deep dive into Beaver Boys' YouTube hustle. But for now, we will go back to the front seven for Jacksonville before the show gets too off the rails. You have Josh Allen, the star of this defense. Really just in general, really good edge rusher, consistently like a top 10 edge rusher in football. The question is, who's going to help him out? Is this the year Kayvon Chason breaks out? Probably not. But maybe Trayvon Walker breaks out. It's totally possible. Even I've done the Trayvon Walker rant 1,000 times, but my whole thing was he's a really raw player. There is a chance that he gets better at things and starts to play well. He's only 22 years old. It's not crazy that this year or next year will be the year he starts to play well, but you can't necessarily bank on it either, is kind of my concern. Interior, you got Roy Robinson Harris, Devon Hamilton, Dwayne Smoot are in the mix. Adam Gostis, a solid interior defensive line here. And then for the linebackers, Fosaid Alukan, who played well in that scheme last year, I thought. Devin Lloyd, though, showed flashes. He's another guy you're hoping to see kind of become a lot more consistent of a player. He did show flashes, unlike another first-round pick on that defense, which is nice to see. But you're just hope for more consistency for Lloyd. So, I don't know, kind of a hard one to really rank here. It's kind of it is a bit difficult for me. I think I'm going to go – I think I kind of have to go tier 4s across the board here, Kyle.
I like this interior a little more. And I'm
Okay.
willing to, I know it's still projection, so it's not entirely fair, but I think I saw enough flashes out of Devin Lloyd to say he's going to be a lot better this year. I still
Mm-hmm.
go think about like that stretch of the Colts and Chargers games early in the year, and just how it seemed like he made every play at one point. And I think he has that level of play in him. So I do like this interior a little more. I do think the interior defensive line's all right. Um, and Josh Allen's good. Josh Allen is great. Like you said, it's going to come down to can they get secondary guys, but I think that they are. There is questions about that, but I do think there is a nice framework here at least.
I think you talk. I'll bump up the run defense to tier 3. I think that's fair. That feels a little right. As a whole, Jaguars. There's some holes here. I kind of feel similar about the Lions, where it's like the hype is there, the hype is real. There should be hype here, but the hype has also gotten a bit out of control. I'm predicting the Jaguars to go 10-7 here. So neither one of us. We both have the Jaguars winning the division, but neither one of us are as high on this team as Jaguars fans certainly are.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely if Lawrence leaps into the top 5 quarterback conversation, then yeah, you could sign me up for 11 wins, 12 wins.
Mhm.
But I just don't know if he's ready to do that yet, and that's perfectly okay. Like if he is a top 8 quarterback next year, I think this team's going to be pretty good and probably making the playoffs. I don't,
Mhm.
so I think 9-8, 10-7. I think that's a good number for them. Excuse me. Wow, sorry. That was really dramatic. Anyway, uh, yeah, I think I think they got winnable games on their schedule. I think they have talented players, so I do think there is an opportunity for them to be pretty good next year. I think people trying to say 12, 13 wins is a little much, but they did play a lot better towards the end of the year.
Yeah, their ceiling. What's their ceiling though? Let's do that conversation. If Lawrence takes that next step, and Trayvon Walker takes that next step, and Devin Lloyd takes that next step, is this ceiling now an elite pass rush with an elite secondary, a good supporting cast? The offensive line's still going to be issues, but maybe a good receiving core with an elite quarterback. Like this is a team that could then be. Are they a championship contender in the AFC if all that hits?
Yeah, yeah, they would be. I mean that like this team took Kansas City to the brink. I know Mahomes was hurt, so that plays a bit of a factor.
It
But
matters a little. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean they still took Kansas City to the brink. Not saying that they. I'm not saying that they like win the majority of the matchups against Kansas City, but they also wouldn't lose 10 out of 10 times at Kansas City. So yeah, I mean, I
Hmm.
definitely think they'd be in the conversation if all of that pans out. Like, and
Yeah.
even if half of that stuff pans out, like let's just say it's an elite secondary next year. Let's say Walker is a solid pass rusher, just a
Uh
good
huh.
number two pass rusher. Lawrence takes a little bit of a leap, and Ridley looks like Ridley, the Ridley that we saw in 2020. Then yeah, this is a championship contender just on that.
Yeah, I think I agree. I also think the issue is there's like then they would be like the seventh championship contender in the AFC.
Yeah, it's an incredibly tough division. So yeah, I agree
Hmm.
with that.
All right. So what do you want to do? Do you want to go with the awards predictions or the final season predictions first? You want to, since we're talking about records and stuff, go with the final season predictions and then finish with the awards?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good to me. So
Okay, so we will be talking about the way I have mine set up. We didn't talk about this beforehand. I just have the 14 teams I have making the playoffs. Then I'm going to do the 4 teams I have making the conference championship, the 2 teams making the Super Bowl, and the team winning it. You want to stay into AFC first, run through that, and then go to the NFC?
yeah, yeah, let's go ahead. Do you want me to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. I almost changed this, but he came back to practice today, so I'm not changing it now.
Okay.
Cincinnati Bengals, number one seed. I
Wow.
did 13 wins, 13-4. I got the Kansas City Chiefs, the Miami Dolphins, and the Baltimore Ravens all at 12-5. Baltimore's the number one wildcard team with the 5 seed. I got Miami by some version of a tiebreaker at 12-5 as the 2 seed. Kansas City is the 3 seed at 12-5. And then Jacksonville at 9-8 as the 4 seed as the winners of the AFC South. Like I said, Baltimore's going to be my 5 seed at 12-5. I got Buffalo 11-6 as the 6 seed. I got the New York Jets 11-6 as the 7 seed. And just on the outside, I got the Los Angeles Chargers at 11-6 and the Browns, Steelers, and Patriots all at 9-8, missing the playoffs. So
Okay.
incredibly competitive top of the AFC. I think that's really fascinating. Um, Number one seed, I talked about them all off season. I think they're the most talented team in the league. 14-3 San Francisco. Chalk them up. Number one seed in the NFC. I got the Philadelphia
Well, here
Eagles.
let's stick with the AFC now.
Oh,
Let's go with the yeah. Let's get our figure out who's winning the Super Bowl and that, and or who's going to the Super Bowl, and then we'll do the NFC.
okay.
Just to
So
try to keep it a little bit. No, you're good. Just try to make it a little bit less chaotic here for the people just listening. Don't have the notes in front. So you have go through it again. Top 4 seeds, the division winners: Bengals, Dolphins, Chiefs, Jaguars. 3 wildcard teams are the Ravens, Bills, and Jets. I actually have the same 7 making the playoffs. Do you want to? Are you going to do the bracket and see who's going to the conference championship and Super Bowl?
yeah, I'll do the bracket. Why not?
Okay.
So
Hmm.
I like to game plan it out here. I don't just pick the number one seeds. That's not as fun for me.
Uh huh.
I got the Ravens on the road after beating Jacksonville, upsetting the Cincinnati Bengals, the number one seed. I got
Okay.
them. So they're in the conference championship game. Baltimore Ravens, explosive offense this year, going to have an awesome year. Dolphins beating the Jets. Chiefs beating the Bills once again. I got the Chiefs beating the Dolphins, and I got the Chiefs representing the AFC in the Super Bowl beating the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, so again, I love how you always do this, where the Chiefs you are predicting to be the 3 seed, but also going to the Super Bowl.
Uh, Listen, not everything goes to script. I got to change it up a little bit. Sometimes the matchup plays to my favor here.
Okay, well, to go through my rankings in the AFC, it's not that dissimilar. I mean, there's one major difference, which is I have the Ravens winning the division over the Cincinnati Bengals, who you have finishing first, and then not winning a playoff game, which again I don't fully follow, but okay. I have the Dolphins and Chiefs both going 14-3, Ravens going 12-5, and then Jaguars 10-7. Those are my 4 division winners. Bengals, Bills, and Jets in that order, all 12-5, interestingly, for the wild card teams. And I'm going Dolphins, Chiefs, AFC Championship. And you know what? What fun is it to pick the Chiefs? Give me Miami going to the Super Bowl
Uh-oh.
out of the AFC.
All right. That is spicy. I like
Hmm.
it though. Let's do
Why
it.
not?
Yeah.
What's not to like?
Talented roster. They got all the pieces. Quarterback stays healthy. They got obviously a chance. So I like it. I had them pretty close too. So you got the Dolphins. I got the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Do you want me to go NFC first?
Yeah, go ahead into NFC. Sorry I cut you off earlier. I know you're excited. Talk NFC. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's all good. San Francisco, like I said, chalk them up. 1 seed. Eagles, chalk them up. This is easy. 2 seed, 13 and 4. Um, 3 seed, your Detroit Lions, 11 and 6 as the 3 seed, representing the NFC North. I had them going in, and I got the Saints at 10 and 7, getting into the playoffs, representing the NFC South. Um, Playoff teams. I have Seattle as a 5 seed at 12 and 5. I have Dallas as a 6 seed, 12 and 5. And I have the Green Bay Packers as a 7 seed, 8 and 9 overall, making the playoffs. Tells you kind of how I feel about the bottom of the NFC. So 8 and 9 team making the playoffs as the number 7 seed. As you get to the playoffs, I had the Cowboys as a 6 seed, upsetting the Lions. I had the Eagles beating the Packers. I had the Seahawks beating the Saints. Then I have the Eagles and the 49ers meeting again in the NFC Championship game. And the San Francisco 49ers are going to the Super Bowl. I had them winning the NFC.
Okay, so you have Chiefs 49ers, a rematch from just a few years ago, but with a different quarterback for the 49ers. That would be very fascinating. The so that's so again, to reiterate your 7 teams: 49ers, Eagles, Lions, Saints, Seahawks, Cowboys, Packers. We do have a difference in this one. One difference: I have the Vikings getting in instead of the Packers at the 7 seed. At the Vikings going 8 and 9 and being the 7 seed. But I have the Eagles as the 1 seed, Niners as a 2 seed, Cowboys 3 seed, and then Saints winning their division, getting the 4 seed with a 7-10 record. Three, I'm not expecting a lot from this NFC as the Seahawks and Lions have them going. Seahawks winning 11 games, Lions winning 10, and then or did I? Wait a second, I think I screwed up the. Screwed, no, because Cowboys cannot win. Cowboys are the 5 seed. That's where my mistake was. So the Lions would be the 3 seed, and then Saints would be the 4 seed. But then yeah, those are the 7 teams. I'm going rematch in the conference championship. Eagles 49ers once again. To me, that just feels like the right thing. And this time, the Eagles also win. Give me the Eagles going
Yep.
back to the Super Bowl.
All right. So we're pretty close on that.
Mhm.
We have similar matchups. I think the
Yeah,
only
we.
thing is I have, based on the kind of playoff layout, I have the Ravens making a run to the championship game. We have the
Mhm.
same Final Four outs. We have three of the same Final Four. We do have different teams in the Super Bowl completely. You have
Mhm.
the Eagles and the Dolphins. I have the Chiefs and the 49ers. And ladies and gentlemen, I told you this when we did our NFC South preview. I have not changed. I will not relent. The San Francisco 49ers are winning the Super Bowl. This is the most talented
Okay.
roster in football. They have so many players on their roster you could look at and say that's debatably the best guy at his position. And I think Brock Purdy's good enough to carry this or manage this team and manage this situation. Give me San Francisco in the Super Bowl beating the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. It's totally possible. Some of you might be sitting here and saying, "Okay, Jackson, I follow your channel religiously. Watch every video, listen to every podcast. I know you picked the Eagles to win 13 games and the Dolphins to win 14. Therefore, Dolphins should be the winner in the Super Bowl." I just think the Eagles are going to have a much easier pathway to get there. There really only feels like two right now. Who knows what's going to happen? A team, some other team will hit their potential in the NFC, and there will be more than just two real contenders. But right now, it feels like there's only two real contenders. It's an easier pathway in the NFC. So give me the Eagles to win the Super Bowl over the Dolphins. That's my prediction.
Eagles win the Super Bowl over the Dolphins. I like it. I like it.
Hmm.
You're not worried about the Super Bowl loser curse?
Uh, Not really. I don't think that. I don't know if there's actual any like reason for that to be a thing. I think that I think they're still a good team. Like they did lose some stuff, but I don't know. I'm not worried about curses. No.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They're still super talented. The NFC, like you said, is a lot easier. So we both have NFC teams winning the Super Bowl. Those do feel like the top two teams in the NFC, and it does feel like whoever wins between those two has a great shot at winning the Super Bowl as a general, because those might be the two best teams in the league, and they have the much easier path.
Does uh, what percentage would you say we look at, when we do our Super Bowl preview, we are talking about either the 49ers or Eagles in the Super Bowl as underdogs? Feels pretty high.
Underdogs?
Yeah, one of those two teams playing in the Super Bowl but being considered underdogs in the Super Bowl.
A possibility, yeah. I would say it's pretty high, but at the same time, like I could see the AFC eating itself alive.
But my point is that one team is going to come out of the AFC, and that team is going to, people are going to be crazy, going crazy. Oh my God, the Chiefs beat the Ravens and the Dolphins to get here.
Yeah. But there is also a chance, like San Francisco, just on the nature of the divisions and the conferences, there's like a chance those teams are like 15-2, and
Hmm.
so I think that'll
Yeah,
also skew things.
yeah, totally possible. Very fascinating stuff. That is our final season predictions, and now for a the cherry on top of the Sunday in the marathon final preview podcast,
Hmm.
we are going to talk about the awards. You want to start off with MVP?
Yeah. Let's keep it moving with that. You know, this is completely throwing darts. Like you have no idea at the end of the day. Some of these
Hmm.
guys might be hurt by week 2. I did get Offensive Player of the Year right last year. I do take credit for that. You're welcome, Justin Jefferson. Um, that being said, like I said earlier, I almost changed this because I was worried he was going to be hurt, but sounds like he's back practicing. Joe Burrow's winning MVP. I think this is
Okay.
Joe Burrow's time. I think this is Joe Burrow's year. I had them getting the number 1 seed, winning 14 games, and I think Joe Burrow is going to win MVP for that. So I got Burrow winning MVP. Lamar Jackson's my backup choice if Burrow wasn't ready to go week 1. So I got Burrow. Lamar's kind of my alternative if he's not 100% healthy.
Yeah, I could see it. I could totally see it. I mean, there's so many players that you could talk about: Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, even Aaron Rodgers in the mix. None of those even made my candidates. Though Joe Burrow was a candidate, got to put him as a candidate. Tua, I put as a candidate. I think Tua is getting underrated here. Just the situation he's in, he has the help. But I know it's a boring take, but I'm kind of at the point now where as long as Mahomes is in the league for the next like 10 years, he should be the favorite to win MVP every year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad
Hmm.
take. It maybe
Uh,
was a little too boring for me, but he's definitely a candidate every year.
yeah. The only thing I feel like the NFL doesn't quite do the NBA thing of like LeBron James not winning MVPs because he's just LeBron James. Like the guy with the best EPA is typically the guy who wins, which is like the best stat to use, but like it's a solid stat to use, and like, pretty much that guy always wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what? We've had back-to-back MVPs plenty of time. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think he can. He's definitely he's the best quarterback. He's the best player in football. So it's not necessarily a hot take to say it. So yeah, I definitely think he has the. He could go back-to-back, no problem for me.
Do you have any like crazy dark horse? I was thinking like could like a Geno Smith thing happen?
Yeah, I was trying to think of like who would be the ridiculous one.
Hmm.
The only thing I could come to was Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I guess so. But that doesn't seem like that. I guess honestly, that probably should be at least considered a possibility.
Yeah. Do you think? I don't know. Like, I I don't think the pro football writers are a vindictive bunch, but like, do you think they'd just be like, this guy is not winning MVP. This
That's a good
guy's
point.
not.
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, he's not going to win it.
But that was the one, like, because I mean, I was only thinking of quarterbacks really because quarterbacks win this award.
Hmm.
But I was like, what if Deshaun Watson's back?
Yeah,
Like,
I think he would. It would have to be so obvious that he's the MVP. Like, there's not even a close second for him to actually win it. I mean,
I
like
would
really
agree
obvious.
too.
I mean, like the year that like 2021 Tom Brady, obvious. Like that kind of obvious that he should win it.
Yeah. What about? I'm trying to think like there are a few guys that are just never going to win MVP no matter what their numbers are just because of the
Mhm.
reputation. Like I don't think like a Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott are not winning MVP. Like it's just not happening.
I could see Dak.
You think so? I
Again,
don't think
if
it's going to
if the
happen.
numbers were the number, if he if he deserved it, I think he would get it.
Yeah. Maybe. But I
People
mean,
people every year talk about Dak Prescott, dark horse MVP candidate.
maybe. I just feel like that's Cowboys nonsense. I don't think he'd ever win.
Well, yeah,
But
I mean
like,
I agree, but I think that if
yeah.
if he deserved an MVP, I think they would give it to him.
Yeah. Josh Allen's always going to be in the conversation. I can't think of another dark horse though. Did you come up with anybody?
Uh, yeah, Trevor Lawrence has to be.
Yeah.
I do think that the hype is a little bit silly. I think that you gotta think about it. But yeah, I mean, other than the players I named, like Hurts, Lamar, Herbert, like Allen Rodgers, like I think it's I don't know. Maybe C.J. Stroud comes out of nowhere and looks awesome, but it seems like it's gonna be. But again, who thought Jalen Hurts would be an MVP candidate last year?
Yeah, that's true. What about your
Elijah
guy
says
Baker
Brock
Mayfield?
Purdy. Honestly, Maybe that's
How crazy. Yeah.
that's the crazy one that could work, right? I mean, he's in a great situation.
I almost think the team's too good that that would go against him, but
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe. He would I
Um,
mean, he would have to again, he would have to have the by far the best numbers in football.
what about your guy Baker Mayfield?
No. He just
Uh,
everyone knows he's so good. They're not going to give it to him even if he deserves it.
oh yeah, that's definitely it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the issue.
Herbert. I mean, I don't know if he's a dark horse at this point, but
I mean, I brought up Herbert as one of the options. Yeah, it's possible.
yeah.
We're not going to do the
You,
NBA thing of every podcast talking about who's going to be the favorite for MVP. That's all NBA podcasts talk about, right? It's just every show is just MVP stock watch.
certainly ESPN. I feel like Kendrick Perkins has a new take every week on who's MVP. It's exhausting. I'm just going to start a bit where after every night for the NBA, I'm just going to pick the guy who had the best stats that night and say he should be MVP.
That's good. Yeah, I like that.
Like Pascal Siakam deserves MVP buzz this season. Did you see his 40-point game last night against the Charlotte Hornets? Unstoppable.
Yeah, that I like that. Defensive player of the year. You're going to start for all of these to keep it simple. Where are you going for defensive player of the year?
Micah Parsons, he's the best defensive player in football. Next.
What? No, he's not.
Yeah, he is.
By what metric?
By every metric. My
There isn't a
metric.
single one
No.
that he is best at.
By vibes. I just think that he's the most versatile player in football.
He's the most
And I think,
exciting, debatably the most exciting defensive player in football. This
I
is a
think
hot
he,
take,
yeah,
Kyle. This is a scorching hot take.
I think he's going to be the best defensive player this year. That's why he's winning defensive player of the year.
Okay,
Uh,
that's a fine take. I mean, I had him as a candidate. I think that him being ahead of T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett. When you said he's ahead of T.J. Watt, I already thought that was a bit hot. Ahead of Myles Garrett as well. That's very very hot.
yeah, I don't know. I just think he does a little bit more. He can bring more to the table. And he's a fantastic pass rusher. So I'll take Micah Parsons.
Okay. Interesting. I had Parsons and Myles Garrett as my candidates. Some other players I thought of were like Nick Bosa, Aaron Donald, Sauce Gardner, even Joey Bosa. I don't think Max Crosby plays in a situation where he would get it, even though he's that quality
No,
of player. TJ Watt's my pick. I just think that he's in a good situation. He's going to rack up
Nick Bolton.
stats. Uh, right. Yeah. I just think that, but I mean, you talk about what Micah Parsons can do. I think I would argue TJ Watt is, you know, nearly as good at all that stuff. And, again, his pure pass rush numbers are the best in football right now. So, I'll go with TJ Watt.
Yeah, as long as he stays healthy, he's always going to be a candidate, right? Like he's that
Mm-hmm.
good. So yeah, I could definitely see it. I think he's definitely worthy. So but I am giving the edge to Parsons here. I mean, he's going to be on national TV basically every week too. I think that adds
Mm-hmm.
a huge part to it, and I think this Dallas defense is going to be really good. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
adds a even bigger part to it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
absolutely true. I think that, quarterbacks will probably hold on to the ball longer playing Dallas than they will playing Pittsburgh. So that's definitely something that could help.
yeah. So I think that's a huge part to it. Like you said, like Max Crosby is good enough to be in this conversation, but he would need to like break the sack record by a significant margin, I think, because I just think that Raiders defense is going to be that bad.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think you have to do it by a significant margin. I think if he just did it, he would win the award.
yeah, that's probably fair.
Yeah.
But
I can imagine he breaks it and they're like, yeah, but Micah Parsons plays off-ball linebacker 10 snaps a game.
I don't know. You never know. Dallas media.
I do agree with the Parsons in terms of I think he could definitely win it just because, like you said, plays. We know that the voters don't watch every game. He plays so many night games, and the fact that he doesn't have it, whereas all these other candidates do, I think that could go in his favor as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I mean, TJ Watt is on TV a lot. The only other guy I was thinking about, but I mean, the whole contract situation makes it difficult, was Chris Jones. But at the same
Hmm.
time, like he's another one of those guys where he gets a lot of counting stats for a defensive tackle, but is not as much of an edge rusher. So that's probably going to be the one thing holding him back. But he would be in the conversation for me too.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. Any other defensive player of the year candidates, or do you want to move on?
Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, I brought him up earlier, but yeah, he's some. I could see it, but again, for a corner to win it, usually what has to happen is, except for that one year that Shaq Barrett should have won it. Usually, there's no edge rusher who like has a ton of counting stats, and that's when a corner wins it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, offensive player of the year. Where are you going?
Uh, I struggled with this one this year. I just went Tyreek Hill.
hmm
He's still, I still think he's maybe the best receiver in football, if not one of the best. He's in the conversation. He's still the best weapon in football, I think, in my opinion. And he's just a nightmare to game plan for. He's done it at two stops now. He did it in Kansas City. It's not all Mahomes. He did it with Tua as well. And he is a nightmare. So, yeah, I got him for Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's going to be awesome once again in Miami in this scheme, and he should get a lot of stats and a lot of numbers.
Yeah, he was one of my candidates. Justin Jefferson, another candidate. I ended up going Christian McCaffrey for my official pick. I think that he could get used in a very real way for San Francisco, in a very unique way for them, and I could see him winning it. But yeah, Tyreek Hill definitely. I mean, we saw how much yards he was able to rack up last year. If he stays healthy for 17 games, feels like he could absolutely win it.
Yeah. McCaffrey's a good pick. Of course, it's always with McCaffrey the health thing.
hmm
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know like a like Jamar Chase going to be in the conversation.
hmm
I think I'm trying to even think who else I would put in that conversation with those guys. Stephon Diggs is going to be in the conversation. There's going to be a few guys there. As far as
Kadarius
like
Toney.
Kadarius Toney,
hmm
um, um, you know, Keishawn Butte,
Sure.
Uh, yeah, I don't even know who I would put as a dark horse beyond those guys. Like maybe like a Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of good players you could put, but you're basically just naming good players at a certain point.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of candidates. That's what makes this job this prediction for offensive player of the year kind of hard.
Uh
You
huh.
just got to pick who you think is going to be the best non-quarterback because that's what the award is now.
Yeah, that's always a weird one. Let's go to rookie of the years. Why don't we? Let's stick with offense. Offensive rookie of the year. Who do you have?
I mean, I can't pick anybody else. I've hyped this guy up enough. He is my guy. As far as with this podcast, because I think I just liked him more than you. It's Bijan Robinson. He's
Uh
going to get a
huh.
bunch of carries. He might lead the league in rushing, and I think he's going to be one of the best backs in football from day one. So there are a few quarterbacks that are going to challenge him, and he's probably got a lot to overcome some of those quarterbacks. But I think he's going to be by far the best offensive player in this draft. So give me Bijan.
Yeah, I struggle. I don't. I didn't go. I ended up putting him as a candidate. I have Bryce Young at number one, and then C.J. Stroud another candidate. Just because like I don't know. I still go back to the year that the Cowboys had Elliott and Prescott. Ezekiel Elliott was legitimately the best running back in football, but because Prescott was like a solid, 13th best quarterback, he was the one who got the award. I feel like for Bijan, he kind of has to be the best running back in football, or like at least like a top like 3 or 4 running back in football to win it. But it's weird because like Mac Jones didn't win it that one year when he should. So it's like I just don't know exactly. These awards are so narrative based that I do think the first overall pick just has that initial leg up.
Yeah. Well, Mac Jones didn't win Heisman too because he looks goofy. So he also didn't win Rookie of the Year because he looks goofy. It is what
Uh
it
huh.
is.
He'll win a Super
Uh,
Bowl soon, though. Don't worry about
yeah, I'm not worried.
it.
So yeah, I
Dude,
mean,
DG says Aiden O'Connell in the chat.
that'd be fun.
uh
I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting before the end of the season. That's for sure. You look good.
huh.
I saw some of the stuff. I did see some of that for preseason. So yeah, you know, the thing is like both of the quarterbacks I had as candidates, I think, are in bad situations. The three quarterbacks I had as candidates, obviously, because the three
Yeah.
rookie starters this year, are all going to be candidates. They're in bad situations.
Yeah.
You could say maybe Anthony Richardson is in the best situation because we said like the offensive line should bounce back. They have pretty good skill talent, but at the same time, like he's the biggest project of the three guys. And then
Right.
the guys who I thought were more pro ready are in bad situations. So I think that's also going to hurt them. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a guy who's top 15 quarterback as a rookie this year. There could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Again, I literally had Bijan in my. I put him at number one, and then decided to move him later on. So should be interesting. Final award, Coach of the Year.
Defensive rookie of the year.
Oh, right. It was in the wrong order in my notes. Yeah, Defensive Rookie of the Year. My bad. Where are you going, Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Jalen Carter. He was
I'm
my
doing the
number.
same.
Yeah, he was my number one player in the draft. There's already been reports about how awesome he looks,
Hmm.
and like, here's the
Looked
crazy
good
thing.
preseason and like 8 snaps.
Yeah, and the training camp buzz has been high. Here's the crazy thing. What if he's better than Javon Hargrave next
Well, that would be insane. That seems like a pretty high
year?
expectations, though.
But he has that potential. Like
Sure.
this is like Ndamukong Suh, young Warren snap level territory as far as a rookie defensive tackle. Like we just
Hmm.
don't see this very much. So, um, he definitely has the talent to win this award pretty easily. I think. Obviously, you got some other guys as candidates. Will Anderson's going to be a candidate. There are a few guys who I think are good candidates, but Witherspoon at Seattle, Christian Gonzalez in New England are both going to get opportunities. Rookie corner is really tough though. But yeah, I think Jalen Carter is by far the best player in this draft, and I think he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and usually the guys who get drafted, the guys who win the award, usually are people that people were like really high on and saying like this guy's going to be great. Like that usually is how you have to do it. It's it happens all the time where like Max Crosby maybe should have won Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he was a fourth round pick, so like no, he didn't have the people slam the table for him. So like Carter and Anderson to me are like the two main candidates. I do think Carter's in a better situation to just get more attention. Although Anderson will probably get more snaps, so I could see him getting it as well. I kind of
Hmm.
struggled to get a third candidate. I ended up going Jack Campbell as a third candidate. I think he'll be good right away, and he'll rack up tackles, which might help. And Lions should
Patrick
get some
Queen.
attention also. Right, exactly. Yeah, Patrick Queen got votes. Jack Campbell should.
Yeah, I think that's a fair pick too. Yeah, I mean, I struggle to see anything besides Jalen Carter right now. I think he's that good. And I think as long as he takes Uber, I think he's going to be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Now it is the last category. Now we're getting to Coach of the Year. Kyle, where are you going?
I mean, it's my guy. He's going three seed in the NFC. I had him at 11-6.
I have Dan Campbell. I'm picking Dan Campbell.
Stealing my thunder here, but yeah,
I,
Dan
I'm.
Campbell.
Oh, you're copying me.
What?
I picked Dan
Dan.
Campbell, and you picked him after me. It's okay. You can
Uh,
pick. You can copy me if you want to.
oh my gosh,
I mean, I'm a
unbelievable.
big Dan Campbell fan, so I mean, it's fine if you want to. I'm not mad at you for also being a Dan Campbell fan.
This podcast is over. Um, Dan Campbell's my coach of the year. I had Zach
Oh, me
Taylor and
too.
Kyle Shanahan as runner-up. Um,
Sorry, who did you have as the other ones?
Zach Taylor and Kyle Shanahan were my second
Zach
and third
Taylor.
picks. Yeah, I had them winning 14 games.
I guess, but that he doesn't. So here's what's broken about the Coach of the Year. Currently, like the worst odds is Andy Reid. This award is
Yeah,
broken. We need to rethink this. If the
yeah,
someone who most people would say is the best coach in football has the lowest odds to win the award, that we've screwed this up.
yeah. It's impossible to win. Um,
Mm.
so I don't know. Like
But
it's goofy, but
mhm.
yeah. I mean, I think if Detroit wins this division, I think Dan Campbell's winning this award.
Yeah, and I think they're winning the division, and so I agree. I think Dan Campbell should be number one. I think it's kind of a clear front runner because it does feel like if they do well, he's going to get the credit for not just this year, but for the past few years. How he took a Matt Patricia just freshly fired team and has gotten them to this point. It wasn't just him, of course, but he's already a media darling. He's someone who we probably will come away from the season saying he did good stuff X's and O's wise. He has a good staff. Yeah, I completely agree. He should be the front runner.
Yeah. So I think he's got a great chance to win it. I guess like dark horse candidates, like I didn't pick any of these guys, but like I don't know, like he's pretty well respected. So like if this is gonna sound biased, if Bill Belichick takes the Patriots to the playoffs in that division, like he's probably gonna be a candidate, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
have them making the playoffs, but
Mhm.
there's a chance they do make the playoffs, and he would be on the list.
I feel like people have been waiting to give Bill Belichick the award post Tom Brady, right? We keep we keep waiting for this the year that he finally has that the Patriots have a good year again and he's coaching and they made the playoffs that one year, but has like a really good year. He's for sure winning it. I had two candidates. I went what about Sean Payton for one of them? If the Denver turns it around and makes the playoffs, couldn't he be basically given the credit because that's the main thing that changed?
Absolutely. and
Hmm.
he's well regarded as a really good coach too. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think he absolutely would deserve a lot of credit for that if he's able to if he's able to get that team closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, my other one, and there really isn't a lot here. I went Frank Reich as another one. Just like I could see the Panthers making the playoffs. Right, that doesn't seem crazy. Winning the division, maybe they go like 8-9, 9-8, make the playoffs. Hey, you turn it around. You got a team that no one expected to make the playoffs Kind of like when Matt Nagy won it that one year.
Yeah, yeah, that's a possibility. I don't see them making the playoffs, but with that division, it is possible. So yeah, I mean that would be another scenario I can agree with.
But the reason why Dan Campbell's clearly number one is, Sean Payton and Frank Reich are like, if this happens, then they might win the award. Dan Campbell is like, we think this is going to happen, and if this happens, then he might win the award. So yeah,
Yeah, easy pick.
yeah. And Elijah says, why not Mike McDaniel? Because I think that we expect good things from him. Again, the coaches that had good teams last year, it's just hard to get attention the next year.
Yeah. Um,
It's not
yeah,
actually who was the best coach team. It's who exceeded expectations the most.
yeah, yeah. It is weird. Like, I mean, there are a few seasons. Like, I think Vrabel definitely deserved it when that Titans team was the one seed. But at the same time, like, there have been years that it's been, like you said, like the Stefanski one or stuff like that, where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
The
you
Stefanski's
just,
the perfect example of just like
yeah,
he had the narrative. Like it was a good coach year and he had the narrative. Like he wasn't bad, but it was just like it was the
yeah,
narrative.
yeah, exactly. So, um, and I do think if the Lions make the playoffs, I think like Dan Campbell would have to do a good job too. So, but I
Right.
also think he has been a good coach the last couple of years, and I think it's kind
Yeah.
of gone under the radar because he's a little weird.
Right. Wait, Dan Campbell's gone under the radar?
No, just that he's actually like a good coach.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, he's underrated as a coach. Right. I agree with that.
Um, yeah, I think the quotes are probably more beneficial to him than what he actually is been a good coach the last couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. Kyle, we are an hour and 40 minutes into this show. It's a good show.
Yeah, long show. Got a lot to talk about. Not as much about the AFC South, but I mean it was all fun. Got
We actually
got
went
a
a little
lot of
long for the AFC South.
yeah. We went over an hour, so
Hmm.
uh, not everybody's doing that. You're welcome, folks.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, lots to talk about. We're
Next
almost there.
week, next week, we are going to be doing our week one preview. It's over. Off season's over. This is the last on the sideline off season podcast of 2023. We did it.
Yeah, football is back. Um, Looking forward to it. This great time of year. Um,
Hmm.
can we do 9 p.m. next Wednesday? I forgot to tell you off air.
You said 9 p.m. Wednesday? Yeah, yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, 9 p.m. Eastern. So we're back to our normal in-season time, 9 p.m. Wednesdays. Then we'll go Sundays live, midnight Eastern, after all the games conclude. So back to our normal schedule starting next week. Looking forward to it.
Yes, so make sure you look out for that. 9 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. We will discuss all the things that are happening, just in general, everything that's happening. We'll discuss the preview. We'll preview each game. Always a fun show. Yeah, Kyle, any final thoughts before we head out? Let them know can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Follow us on Twitter. Make sure to follow him at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Grana, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Yes, of course, if like audio only podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, check the audio. Check on the sideline podcast. It should be available there. Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, looking forward to next week. We're about to have some real games, not preseason, so it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, very much excited. Again, thank you to everybody for listening. If you listen to an hour and 42 minutes of this, God bless you.
I hope you had a good time.
Yes, yeah, I hope so as well. And thank you. We do appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace.